Hey everybody, Suzanne here with Caregiver Haven. So I'm so glad you're here because there are so many conflicting ideas about the legal aspects of senior care. And I will tell you from closing out estates that this is a nightmare and it doesn't have to be. We can get just the fewest documents in place and it will just let you slide right on through to anything and everything you need. So we've got to stop the confusion here. The other thing I just want to tell you about is this webinar is going to show you how to do a lot of the things yourself, because once your loved one goes into the hospital or needs an emergency and you don't have the proper documents, an attorney is going to charge you $200 to $500 to get those documents, which are templates, which you can get online. And you can always check with the hospital. They're more than happy to help you get the documents. They have copies right there. All you have to do is fill in the blanks and sign them, and you or have your loved one sign them, and you're okay. So let's go through this, and I'm going to explain some things, personal things that have happened to me as well. So do you have to, do this right now? Well, if something happens, it's best to have these documents in place. Although I will tell you, no matter how much you think you're ready, you're still going to find that the next step isn't there. And something's going to block if we don't. Something's going to block your ability to make decisions if we don't do it immediately. So let's look at these. What are we going to learn today? All right, we're going to learn what a POA, power of attorney, really does and what they don't do. And the 3 POAs that every caregiver should know about. And then how to start the legal talk, and the common traps you're going to avoid, and the easiest next steps to get protected. Really, this doesn't have to overwhelm you. Let's take it one step at a time. Okay, imagine this. Your dad or your loved one, your husband, your spouse, your partner is all of a sudden rushed to the hospital. And his medications and doctors and preferences, you know them all. But the hospital refuses to talk to you. Why? Because you're not legally authorized, whatever legally authorized means. So this happens every single day. The legal tools like power of attorney aren't just for one day. They are for now. And they're for emergencies, they're for everyday banking, and they're making sure that your voice matters when your loved one needs you the most. Really, you have to have somebody speak up for you, because once they put that IV in your arm and they start those drugs, that person, your loved one, does not know what's going on. So you have to be the one that speaks up and knows what's going on. So the legal setup is not about control. It's about the wishes that your loved one has. And you have to know what those are. So getting these forms in place are going to save you thousands in terms of emergency legal fees. Trust me. So it's really important we get this done ahead of time. All right, let's get clear about what a POA actually is. The power of attorney is a legal document that allows one person, you, to act on another's behalf. And here's the key. It only applies while the person is alive. Once the person dies, there is no power of attorney anymore. So you don't call their attorney and say, well, I have power of attorney. It's no longer a legal document, basically. It's dead. It dies when the person dies, okay? Unless it's a durable power of attorney. We're going to talk about these. But it's not a free pass to take over someone's life, and it doesn't replace a will. It has nothing to do with that, nor does it handle what happens after death. Many of our members and caregivers think that the POA lets them do everything, but that's not true. You got to understand the boundaries of what this tool is about. So when does it go into effect, and when does it end? All right, you have to match the right power of attorney. And you say, what? Yes, there's a general power of attorney, there's a durable power of attorney, there's a medical power of attorney. So one person in your family might be the general power of attorney, another one can be the durable power of attorney, the other can be the medical power of attorney. So they're all different. So often the general power of attorney is someone who is used for financial tasks when someone is traveling or recovering. The durable power of attorney, which stays in effect if your loved one becomes incapacitated, this one is essential for caregiving. And then lastly is the medical power of attorney, also called a healthcare proxy. Um, it's it has the health directives in it. It has the do not resuscitate in it, those kind of things. And that lets someone make medical decisions when your loved one can't. So, for example, you may have somebody in your family whose background is in medicine. Maybe they're a doctor, a physician assistant, or even a nurse. You want them to be the medical power of attorney, but you want them to check with you and other people in the family. You just don't want them making the decisions. You want them to check with you. So they have to have that ability to be that type of person that's going to check with others. Okay. The durable power of attorney is somebody who maybe has a background in finances that understands what that's about. And the general power of attorney is the person that's available to do this on a general and temporary basis. All right, when the seconds count, let's walk through a real scenario. Your mom falls and is unconscious, and the ER asks, who can make the decisions? If you have the medical power of attorney, you're ready. And you hand it over and you speak for her. There's no delays, there's no guesswork. Normally, they don't check to make sure. They don't ask for the power of attorney. Some states do, and many caregivers keep it on the refrigerator just in case they need to hand it over. This can be a state regulated protocol that emergency people request that power of attorney, that medical power of attorney. So without one, the staff must make emergency decisions. And this is not going to be you. You're going to be shut out. Because we've done this in the emergency room. We've had to make the decisions because the person, there was no power of attorney. The other thing you need to know is there are instances where you're not around for some reason. Mom falls, is unconscious, and the person taking care of them all of a sudden says, "Oh, it's assumed that they're the power of attorney," and this person is the gardener, a visitor that just knocked on the door. I've seen crimes where the cleaning lady comes in and says she's the power of attorney and is taken over completely on all decisions. So has nobody checked ID and nobody checked the power of attorney. This is getting more and more common. So you want to be careful here. So medical power of attorneys kick in only when the person can't decide for themselves, and they take the burden off you when the time is critical, you being the senior. It isn't just the paperwork, it's the power to protect. And you want to remember that. They can't speak for themselves. So always keep a copy of the medical power of attorney in your glove box and your phone for emergencies, and keep it on the refrigerator of your senior's house. I always recommend that. We'll talk about some legal issues here in a minute. All right, know your limits. What I mean here is a power of attorney can't do everything, okay? They're powerful but limited. So the power of attorney doesn't replace the will, and it doesn't replace making decisions after death, and it doesn't automatically cover long-term planning. It won't override somebody's wishes while they're still competent. And there's something called a POLST. And some states honor this. And a POLST is the health directive that the doctor and the senior have signed, and that's going to override what the power of attorney wants to do. Okay? So if you need these powers, you're also going to need other legal tools like the will, like the living trust, or court-appointed guardianship, which is extremely expensive. And I don't know if you even want to go there. But knowing what a power of attorney can't do helps you fill in these gaps. And you're going to see this in the checklist I have available for you. So what happens if your senior passes? That's your cue that the POA is no longer enough. It's not. You're going to kick into the will and the person who is designated as the trustee of the estate or executor of the will, executor or executrix of the will. So it's important that you know this ahead of time. Power of attorney is only while they are alive. Okay, power of attorney is only part of the story for medical care. You also want two more documents. You want the living will and you want the medical power of attorney. Together, they're called the advanced directive. So the living will is going to spell out what kinds of treatment your loved one wants or doesn't want at the end of life. Things like resuscitation, life support, or feeding tubes. The medical POA designates who makes these decisions if they can't. These are two separate tools. So again, one, the living will, says what's going to happen. That is designated by your senior and the doctor, usually, especially if it's a post. That's a legal agreement, and the doctors can't even go against it. So if your senior got together with your doctor and said, if I fall and hit my head, put me in hospice. What? And the doctor signs that. The doctors in the emergency room can't do anything but call hospice. That's it. It's a very locking, powerful document. So that's why I always say you want to go to the doctor with your senior to make sure they're not telling the doctor something and the doctor doesn't know any better because they really don't know their patients anymore. So just protect yourself and protect your senior. Okay, the medical POA is going to designate, like I said, these other decisions, all right, and carry them out. And it is a gift to have these. It is truly a gift. So use these combined forms and make sure that they are legal in the state in which your senior is living. So, yeah, I think we'll talk about this later. All right, take charge of their finances. This is where you're going to imagine that your senior's rent or access to their account to stop a late fee, but you can't. So banks don't care that you're the caregiver unless it's in writing. That's where the durable financial POA comes in. The bank has to have this document in order to talk to you. And I cannot tell you the number of times that somebody, a caregiver, calls up and pretends to be this person. And we know they're not, even though they have the passwords, and it doesn't get very far. So you have to have these legal documents in place without needing court approval. You don't have to go through court to do this. All you need is a document that says that you have the financial power of attorney. Now, one point, and I will tell you this just from experience, that closing out these estates, you need about $10,000 readily available in order to start paying a lot of fees. So I know that sounds like a lot of money, but it really disappears quickly once your loved one dies and you've got to go through all these legal challenges and documents. So get a safety net for you and for your loved one. Make sure that they have I suggest a separate savings account with no less than $10,000 in it. That is a joint account. And the minute that, if you're the trustee, of course, and have to close out the account. So let's say your mom dies and your brother is the financial power of attorney, and on a joint account that's separate from all their other accounts and assets. And this is just to close out. And the rest of the money at the end can be designated, if there's any left, can be designated to be split with the rest of the family if you like. But the $10,000 disappears pretty fast. All right, many banks, that's, the $10,000 is for everything. It's for the death certificates, it's for the funeral, it's for the obituaries nowadays are $500. Even if you write a couple of words, it's awful how expensive these things are. One friend told me that because she didn't have flowers in her pre-planned funeral thing, one flower, that's all she could afford, was $50 on her mom's casket. That was it. Because that one flower was $50. If she wanted a bouquet, it went up to over $300-400. It's ridiculous. So think about those funeral arrangements too, because they're going to get costly. A lot of people nowadays are being cremated for online services. They get $800 to cremate. The cremation services pick up the body. They verify that that's the person. They cremate and they send the ashes directly to you for $800. starting fees for funeral homes are typically $7,000 to do this for you. And that will include the death certificate, which is $15 to get. So in most places. So you don't even need that. But I'm just telling you this so you understand how expensive these things can be versus, if you want a funeral, yes. But if you want a memorial service, a day to celebrate, a life celebration, that you can have anywhere, and you can arrange that for a later date, and you could bring the ashes there and do something like that. So the secret, I'm going to tell you, is many banks are going to require their own POA form, even if you have one signed. So you have to check with the financial institution. Same thing with hospitals. Hospitals have their own forms because states vary in legal requirements. One state might say only one witness, another state might say two witnesses. And I've seen this. I've seen people out of state come into the emergency room. They don't have the right legal documents. And they say, well, I'm from another state. And I said, sorry, we require two legal signatures here. And you only have one. So we have to make the decisions for you. It's horrible. Okay, next, the best time is right now. Now, what I mean by this is, set up a time before it's needed and just start knocking out this checklist and just put everything in a folder. I'll show you how to do that. But once your loved one loses legal capacity due to a stroke, dementia, or injury, it's going to be too late. And then your only option is court-appointed guardianship, which is expensive. Like I said, this would be up to $10,000 and time consuming, about 10 months to get this done. And the court's going to decide. And the judge doesn't know you. They don't know your situation. And they might end up giving, all the power to somebody who showed up once when they were 3 years old. And you don't even know who that cousin is. So start getting this in place now. I can't stress how important it is. You have to have these legal documents in place if you're taking care. The other thing I want you to know is this. You have to go back to the doctor who, if your loved one has dementia, go back to the doctor who diagnosed him or her with dementia and say, what are the state's rules for dementia? I mean, once they have been diagnosed with dementia, do they still have some legal status? Can they still sign documents or not? Because I've seen situations where several caregiver members were taking care of their loved one, and all of a sudden the brother shows up and takes the demented senior to their attorney, and the attorney signs everything over to the brother, has the senior sign everything over to the brother, and the poor caregiver never even knew any of this. And so then the senior dies, and the next thing you know, there's a new will in place, and it says everything goes to the brother. What? And the seniors and the caregivers are left with nothing. This happens. You think these people will never happen to me, and they're shocked when it does. Money makes people very ugly. All right, how to have the talk. Talking about legal matters, nobody wants to do this, but we have to, and it doesn't have to be confrontational. Say things like, I just want to make sure you stay in control no matter what happens. I do have a product, I don't know if it's a webinar or it's called Ask About Their Will. And it's how to ask them about their will and, putting it on them that it's going to be okay. But we want to set everything up. And don't frame it as, I need power. Frame it as, let's make sure your wishes are respected. Who do you feel would be best at this? And they may say, oh, so-and-so. And you're like, what? That person doesn't know anything, can't even add 1 + 1. How could they be the financial person? But you have to be, if you're going to open this conversation, be ready that they may leave you out of it completely. Or they'll say something like, this is always interesting. They say something like, Oh, my attorney knows everything. Well, give me your attorney name so I can go over everything because the laws have changed. When did you have your will done last? Because these laws have changed. And you call the attorney doesn't want to talk to you. You got to get permission from your senior that you can talk to the attorney. And the next thing you know, the will is so old that they have everything going to their spouse who passed 3 years ago. And the attorney doesn't know anything about this, of course. So these things need to be kept up to date. And I think every once a year is a good time, especially around tax season, since we have to do taxes anyway. Then we might as well look at all the different products, the POAs and the living will and the will and all of that at that same time. All right, siblings, roles, and respect. One of the biggest sources of legal stress in caregiving, it's family drama. There's no doubt about it. You may be doing all the work, but someone else insists to be the power of attorney, or worse, no one wants to talk until it's too late. And to avoid this conflict, you have to open up this conversation. And some of your siblings are going to go, I don't want to talk about it. Other of your siblings are going to go, wait, what? And they want to get as snoopy as possible. They want to know everything. Where's mom's jewelry? Where's mom's money? Where's mom's this? Where's mom's that? Where's dad's watch? Where's dad's silver coins? Oh, where's the collection? And all of a sudden the collection has disappeared. So you might even need to bring in a neutral professional to help you with this. And they're out there. They're patient advocates, they're caregiving advocates, they're senior advocates, whatever you want to call them. They're wonderful people that can mediate this and do this regularly with a lot of people. So everything is dealt with nicely and you don't have to worry about it. The key is transparency. That way everybody knows the plan. And the way to protect yourself here is that once you have this plan set up, you email it to everyone so they can't say they didn't get it. And you keep copies of those emails that you sent. So you can go back and say, I sent you the email. You should have read it. So ask your senior to put the power of attorney choices in writing with a short explanation. It helps to shut down that future conflict. All right. So the POA, it just isn't a legal form. It's also a family dynamic, and it helps you protect everybody in the future. All right, don't let these trip you up. These are the generic forms that are going to be rejected. So again, will you have to go to the power of attorney? Do you have to go rather to an attorney? Do you have to go to the hospital? What are the laws in the state? So think about this. So if your loved one lives in the South or another state during one part of the year, you got to look those legal documents up and get them off the computer from that state. Then you have to go to the other state where they live half of the year, look those up and get those. All right. So you may end up, depending on where they live, not residency. We don't care about residency. It's got to be where they're living at the time the incident occurred. I'll say that again. It's got to be where they're living at the time the incident occurred. So make sure that if they live in 2 different states throughout the year, that you have that. Same thing, banks, hospitals, they may reject these generic forms. Make sure you have them available. And keep a POA log of who has the copies, when it was signed, and when it needs updating. About every 2 to 3 years is smart. But as they get older, I think every year you really ought to keep it updated. Or some specific event, like they get diagnosed with dementia, or a spouse dies, or a child dies. If a child dies, of course, whoever is in charge, all right, and changed, has to be updated. The next thing you need to know, and I've already mentioned this, is check with your state website. So you don't need a $2,000 lawyer to do this. And it usually costs about $2,000 to $2,500 to do this. But what you want here is not a general lawyer. All right. You want a elder law attorney. Now, I've had to have and hire two different attorneys, and these fees were astronomical. It cost over $100,000 to close out a will that was worth no more than $500,000. So they took 20% of the assets. And these two firms had to figure out how to move the money from one state to another because the person was a resident in the other state. And if it's out of country, it's going to be just as expensive. So be aware of that. So start by checking the state's official website, look at those, and then start calling the most likely hospital where your senior will be half the year, or your senior will be using the other half of the year. Now, this brings up another good point. Because I've been in medicine for so long, I know where the good hospitals are and where the bad hospitals are. Okay. And some hospitals are now designated in areas as stroke hospitals. Others are cardiac or heart hospitals. So if they're two different hospitals and they're two different entities, you might need to get, and you will have to get the forms from the heart hospital, and you'll have to get the forms from the stroke hospital. Okay. You don't know what your senior is going to have happen to them. So I would protect myself by getting both. All these legal documents, once you have them in a folder, man, you can move so smoothly through anything. You have them and people will love them. I have an interesting story for you. And what happened is I had everything organized for my brother's surgery. Okay. And they said, okay, we're going to call you. We're going to text you as he goes into surgery. We're going to text you throughout the surgery. And we're going to let you know when he's out of surgery and when you can see him. So good. Everything's in place. Well, the next thing I know, the doctor doesn't call me. The doctor doesn't connect with me. The doctor doesn't come and see me. The doctor leaves after this 5-hour surgery, and I can't get a hold of him. And I finally call the office and I say, nobody's called me. Nobody's told me anything. My brother's out of surgery and I want to know what the doctor did and found. And the person on the phone says, oh, well, we can't talk to you because the HIPAA form hasn't been signed. And I was like, what? You've been giving me all these texts all day long about his surgery. Well, that's different. Well, how is that different? Here they were giving me information about my brother. Now all of a sudden they say they can't give me information about my brother because the HIPAA forms weren't signed. This is the craziest thing I've ever seen. But this is the kind of things you get caught up on. So make sure a HIPAA form is in place. That says that the doctor's allowed to talk to you and only you, unless your senior has designated other people. So make sure that's in place, because evidently texting about your loved one's condition is okay, but having the doctor talk to you is not okay. Two different forms. Isn't that interesting? So include and also include in when you organize and put everything. I like one of those accordion folders, and I just put the documents in the accordion folder in different slots, and you can organize it any way you want. But also keep a digital and physical copy. I'm sorry, I spelled the copy wrong there, but that's my mistake. All right, but also keep an at a glance sheet. So you know, and I keep that at the front. So I know exactly, actually, that's my checklist, which I'll talk about in a minute. And I keep that at the front. So I know where everything is in the accordion folder. All right, so let's make it easy. So this is the tool. It's the 31 legal and financial documents checklist that you're going to get. And if you'll click below and get it, and look it over and just start one at a time. Just start collect these copies and make sure you have them. Don't forget passwords. You've got to have the passwords to everything, including their phone. And then pair the checklist with a reward. Like if you finish the first 5 items, okay, and you've got them in your accordion folder, just go take a break, get a cup of coffee, go for a walk, go enjoy an ice cream sundae, whatever it takes. And then set up a time in 2 weeks that you're going to do the next 5 items on them. And you're slowly but surely getting them done. Okay, this is your folder. And remember, if there's ever an emergency and the house is on fire or the hurricanes are coming, you grab this folder when you leave. Always grab the folder. Okay, so this is just the beginning. All right, you're not thinking about, well, I should get this done, it's hanging over my head. Now you're going to get it done, and it doesn't have to be perfect. You just have to get it going. Remember that. It's just about protecting your peace of mind. So guilt, of course, that's normal. We all feel guilty about the things we should do, and we keep shoulding on ourselves. You know that expression. But progress starts today. So not someday, but today. You don't have to get it perfect. You just have to get it going. So just do a few at a time. And then what we learned today is what the power of attorney is, and there's 3 types. When to set it up is just starting now. The conversation tips are about, I want to make sure your wishes are taken care of, and the tools for success are these 31 checklists, which I have right here. So that's what it looks like. 31 legal and financial documents checklist. It's below. Just click on it and get your copy of it and just start. Okay? And then when that's all said and done, just do it once a year, or once every 2 or 3 years, if your loved one is in good health. And then as they age, just make sure anything that changes in your family, anything that changes in their chronic condition or diagnoses will determine when it's time to update them. The other thing I will say is every elder law attorney will tell you that as we change presidents, new laws go into effect that affect our states. So therefore, every time we get a new president in office, which is every 4 years, of course, they say you really should be updating let the dust settle first, and then 6 to 8 months later, call the elder law attorney and say, are there any changes I need to come in and look at? Because the states are going to change the tax laws, they're going to change the estate laws, they're going to change, any kind of laws. Who knows? So make sure you contact at least 4 years, every 4 years, when the presidents change. All right, that's it. Take care, and we'll talk soon. Bye-bye.